Hi, this is Patrick Pauls and my co-host,
Miraj Ali.
and we're both IT professionals here to talk to you about how technology can impact business. Each episode, we're going to bring you insightful interviews and the latest topics in technology and business.
Thanks for spending some time with us today on the Smart Bridge podcast. Let's begin.
Today, on our episode of the Smart Bridge podcast, we are going to talk about transforming user resistance.
So what does that mean? There's obviously a problem within organizations where executives are met with resistance for change. Now what we're going to do is we're going to go over the problem, why those issues occur, some examples, and also a way to transform them to your benefit.
One of the easiest manifestations of the resistance to change is when you look at IT, technology in general, and you implement new policies, processes, or procedures. Most of the time when anything changes, you get an automatic knee-jerk reaction from the users, and they just don't want to accept the change. You can tell them it'll give them a 20 or 30% benefit. They'll be faster, they'll be easier, they won't have to do something, but the users just will not ever accept the change. We want to talk about why that is, some of the examples and issues that we've run into, and some of the ways that we can go back and we can kind of fix it, or at least ease that burden and simplify that process.
Okay, well, here's the truth. User resistance in general is something that's hard to overcome because we are battling human nature. It's a human tendency to resist any change because of several reasons. So why does that happen? A few of the reasons is, think about it this way. You've been good at something for so long and someone comes along and tells you, hey, we're changing a process. Well, to you, it might be subconsciously a fear of losing control. You feel like you've lost an identity. You've been doing something for years and years, and now there's the ultimate change coming through, and now you have to learn the process. You don't know if you're scared if hey, am I even going to be good at this anymore? So that's one reason why resistance comes into play for many organizations.
I'd also go along with that and say it may be a subconscious thing, but I think people just get comfortable in what they're doing. They don't want to learn a new process. They don't want to do something. They know what they're doing. They know how to do it, and people. They just don't like change. They don't want change, regardless of whether it can help them.
Yeah, that's true. But people need to realize, organizations need to realize that in order to hit your goals, you have a vision. And in order to hit the goals and get the objectives that you want to reach, you have to be open as a culture, not just as individuals, to step out of your comfort zone. There might be a new technology or a new process that does things 10 times better, 100 times better. But if you're not willing to adopt, then you're going to be left behind because technology is dynamic, it's going to change, and there are plenty of organizations out there who are willing to. So it's an adapt or die kind of mentality.
I mean, you go back and you look at it, right, over the past 20 years specifically. I know I'm a little bit of a younger guy, but I've been in technology for a while, and it's really been a passion of mine. And you look at this change, and change is accelerating at a dramatic pace. That's not new to anyone. Everyone can see it around us. Everything from smartphones and tablets to Wi-Fi. I mean, you can't get the latest technology without something that's better already available on the market somewhere. And by the time you have access to that, there's something better again. But what I really want to talk about is, I want to talk about a lot of different things. So Miraj, what about you? What are some of the points that you wanted to make?
So we talked about the fear of losing control. We talked about not wanting to step out of our comfort zone. But there's also an aspect of not wanting to risk anything. So what does that mean? There's always an uncertainty out there because we don't know the future. We don't know if we're going to spend this time to implement a process or a new technology that it will work. So there's always a resistance that pops up in an organization because that is not. So there's always a resistance in that nature. Because not wanting to risk anything means you don't have to put any mental energy or any effort that you don't have to, because, hey, why fix it if it's not broken? But to executives, they're seeing it, they're trying to see steps ahead. and they want to get the culture and the organization to move forward with them.
Right? They want to actualize that vision, and to actualize that vision, you have to have change and you have to implement it. Going back to the user resistance, though, one of the things that I can think of specifically is that there have been several times. An example that I experienced with one of our clients was we've been on a project for, I want to say, 4 or 5 months now. Now, the way we manage files and communicate amongst the team has changed 4 separate times in that 5-month period, because they're rolling out this technology, and then once one tool gets set up and we learn about the tool, they have something else, and they have the next thing and the next thing and the next thing. And I think another one of the underlying issues is that, one, when you implement change, you have to implement change quickly, but a lot of people, because they understand that and they want to implement the change, they roll out these changes too quickly. Now, you can have a tiered methodology where you fix either one portion or a small subset of things and then roll it out in a kind of a as-you-go method. And I think that works a lot better for most organizations, especially the smaller organizations or the larger organizations that don't have the ability to change like the smaller ones do.
Absolutely. Now we've talked about the problem and some of the examples that we see that come up in organizations and with our own clients. So let's talk about how to understand a way to turn those to your favor. So one of the steps is to first acknowledge that resistance exists. As individuals and as an organization, you need to be open to acknowledge, hey, I'm resisting right now, or there may be a new process that'll help us, but why am I sabotaging it, or why am I not all for it? So you first acknowledge it.
Right. So did you just take a book out of the AA meeting, the AA methodology, saying the first step to correcting a problem is admitting that you have one?
Well, maybe, but I think it's a universal truth,
No, it really is. And I believe the first step to getting over anything is admitting that you have it. You look over and over again, especially when it comes to information technology and technology in general, that people don't like to admit that they have a problem. On top of that, one of the reasons why they don't want to admit that they have that problem is because change costs money. It takes resources, time, effort, training, physical equipment and implementation, and then of course trained staff and project planning to roll all that out successfully.
Yeah, absolutely. So we talked about acknowledging it, and you just gave a great example of that. Now, what do you do once you've acknowledged it?
Well, like I was kind of mentioning before, after you acknowledge there's a problem, you have to really analyze that problem and find how technology, at least in circumstance, can solve that problem for you.
Yeah, so what you're talking about is identifying the source of the resistance and analyzing, hey, you're trying to figure out the trade-off.
Right. So you have to look at it. You say, I'm getting that knee-jerk reaction or some resistance from my users. Why? Is it a training issue? Because if I trained them well, they probably wouldn't be worried about spending their time trying to learn it. Or is it that it's not working? A lot of times we develop solutions for our clients that don't actually fulfill all their needs. I'm talking about IT in general, of course, because I've never made a mistake in my life. Yeah, right. Anyway, back to it is, that's the biggest problem that I see with implementing that type of change, is that we're going out and we're rolling out these solutions, but they don't address the problem, or they add so much additional administrative overhead for people that they just decide they don't want to do it, and they want to default back to that old efficient process, or at least what's efficient for them.
Yeah, you talked about training, and I feel like that's a really important part of one of the other steps is vision. What is it? What's the organization's vision? And if you're truly about that vision and you truly want to achieve it, then you want to set a culture for the organization and for your employees to fit that, and also want to contribute to grow. So training is part of that. You want to set up trainings. You want to have lunch and learns. You want to have maybe open door policies, or basically you want employees to feel comfortable enough to where they can come up to you and say, hey, I have a problem with this, or hey, I think we should do this better. So many organizations, maybe they get too big where they can't have that kind of transparency, but I think that's a big part of why the top organizations succeed, is because they have visionaries and they have a way to trickle that kind of view down to their employees.
Right. I mean, that goes along with any type of open door policy. But the real issue, like I said, I keep going back to this and I've seen this time and time again. Talk to your users, find out what the requirements are, find something that can actually help them with their job and make it better. Everything looks great when you put it in statistics and it's on spreadsheets or in presentations, but have a small rollout. Implement this in, like I said, in a tiered methodology or a small scale and get feedback from your actual user groups before you roll it out company wide. Why? Well, there's another example that I can think of is one of the clients we were working for developed a iPad app, right? And this is a great iPad app that helped the people out in the field so much. One thing they didn't consider during that, when they were developing that, is that the people using the iPads were actually going to be wearing gloves. And the iPads were going to have these massive covers and cases on them. And with the gloves and the cases, the application was effectively useless. So they had to redevelop the interface for that iPad application so that the users could actually use it. And see, that is, like I said, that's one of the biggest portions of that change, is that people are going to say, I can't use this. So you have to think of those, you have to have that vision, but you have to also be practical about it before you start and realize that if there's any small thing wrong with that, you're going to get that resistance to start off with.
Yeah, so part of that you're saying is there's a disconnect between management and what users, either the organization's own employees or their own clients need, and they're just going out and buying or trying to adopt technologies that they think will improve their numbers or improve their efficiency, but there's that disconnect, and I guess in that sense they need to sit down and acknowledge the existence of the resistance, and identifying the source will be that there's a disconnect. Hey, what are we not listening to the users? What are the actual requirements and issues that they're having?
Right. I mean, there's in almost every organization that I've had the opportunity to work with, there seems to be a little bit of the management or the C-level sit up in their ivory towers and don't listen to us. When you're able to develop a technology and roll out a process change like this that actually addresses their issues, not only is it better for the company and makes you more productive, it gives a little bit of feedback, or it shifts that mentality a little bit of an us versus them to they're really trying to help us out with our job and make it better for everyone.
Yeah, you have to look at it as like a win-win situation.
Exactly. So it can be a double-edged sword or a win-win situation. It all comes down to planning efficient solutions, training your clientele or your users, and then giving them a product that they can use and they want.
Yeah, and that way they'll see that there's value within them, and the organization holds their vision. They have integrity towards their vision, and they're trying to do everything they can by keeping them involved to get there.
Right. It can be something as simple as a survey, or it can be an in-depth user group that you've selected from several different people when you roll these out. I mean, that's all going to come around to what solution or what process or technology you're implementing and how you're doing it. And I'll leave that up to the visionaries to decide, because that's what they get paid the big bucks for.
Yeah, everyone has a different vision, and there's always a way to adapt it. There has to be this process or understanding of why the resistance is happening and how to overcome it. And one thing I think is really important is, let's say you even have these employees, knowing this user resistance, understanding it, and learning how to overcome it can be very helpful and beneficial in the recruiting process. So when you're going and hiring people, you want to test them to see if they have any resistance, or if they've shown that they can adapt and learn. So that's a huge part of setting the organizational culture for the future as well.
Right. Now, one thing I would like to discuss, or at least get your thoughts and opinions on, are, okay, so we talked about tools and technology that can help your users and help the company. Now, I want to propose a scenario for you. What happens when you implement a process, a policy, or a procedure, maybe even a technology that is great for the company, it's necessary for the maturity of the company, yet it puts a small burden on those users? How do you get them to effectively swallow that pill, knowing full well that it's going to help the company on a massive level, whether it be reach that vision, or help with time management, or just any type of process in that company?
Well, you would hope that you have people who are in line with that vision in the first place. But if you don't, you can always have training, you can have recognition, you can have events outside to build company morale. And as long as they're taken care of and they feel like they are valued, if they can come up to you and have one-on-one sessions, if they can come up and have a group meeting and air out their opinions or anything that's bothering them, then I feel like they'll be open to that minor adjustment that they have to make. And eventually, they understand, deep down, every person understands that the more you do it, the less effort it'll require going forward. It'll become part of their nature and just something they do.
So really what you're talking about is bringing it back to transparency. We're implementing this. This is why we're doing it. This is how it can help. And then also give the end users or the end users a little bit of ability to vent and talk back, or not talk back, but talk to you or their managers about how this change is affecting them.
Yeah, you have to, because then then the resistance is not just internal and becomes a us versus them mentality versus a whole an organization as a whole trying to achieve a vision. So if you don't have that, then that's another level of correction that needs to be made to get to that vision that you have. Absolutely. And one more thing I want to add. With any process, with any change, you have to have faith in the visionaries. And you have to have faith within yourself that, hey, I am able to adapt. They have a good interest. If not, I have the ability to go up to them and speak to them about it and get clarification. And just have faith that the process that are being put into place, the technology that are being run, if you don't understand it, you can always get clarification. But as long as you have faith that things are for the better, then you won't resist as much.
So just kind of to summarize it, what we're going to do is we're going to have, hey, we identified this problem.
Yeah.
2, we've analyzed the actual issue and we're providing a tool that can solve that problem.
Yeah.
3, be transparent with your employees or your users. 4, allow them to give you some feedback. And 5, have faith that when you invest this time, energy, and you've made this plan to implement a new portion of that vision, it will actually succeed. Mm-hmm. Because if you don't have that faith, it's not going to.
Yeah, you got it. You hit it right on the nail.
All right. Well, I think we should probably bring this one in for a landing. So thank you everyone for listening to our podcast today. Now, if you want to, you can reach out to us on social media if you want to see a little bit more. Check out our website and our blog. And also give us a like and subscribe wherever you found us. We're on multiple platforms right now, and the more you like and subscribe, the better it is for us and the more content we can put out to you.
Absolutely. And hey, if you had any organizational issues or faced any resistance, reach out to us on social media and we'll be happy to listen and take a read.
Well, that's all for us today. This is Patrick Pauls.
This is Miraj bringing you the SmartBridge podcast, Transform IT.